welcome once again for today's session on the unit People, Development and Environment. So most basically, this unit is not only is not only critical for scoring well in paper 1 of the UGC-NET exam, but it also forms the very foundational framework for understanding how human societies interact with the planet. We are a very important or crucial part of this planet or this environment that surrounds us. So it is very much necessary to understand the interrelation between these three important dimensions, that is people, development, and environment. So if we see the interconnection among these three, we'll see that they are no separate entities, but they are just overlapping. The relationship is like they are overlapping around a central, we can say, idea, that is a balanced future for all. We all know how people is influencing the environment, and in turn how environment is influencing us. It is very evident from the day-to-day scenarios, from the day-to-day natural calamities. So if we are aware of the recent happenings in Assam, the flood and the devastating flood and all, which were never occurred before. I have never witnessed this, although I am being more than 20 plus, but I have never seen such a devastating flood. But why, how it is happening, or why it is happening? Because we people are recklessly cutting down the trees, destroying the very environment, and in turn the environment is also, we can say, in a playful manner, it is taking revenge on us. So it is how it is taking place like this. So what do you understand by people? Any one of you? So if someone is coining the particular term or like citing the term people, what do we basically understand from this? So when we talk about people in this unit, we are discussing equity, empowerment, and the human well-being. So development cannot happen in a vacuum. So it must serve people. Okay, so keep this thing in mind. Secondly, what do we understand by environment? So what is environment? So environment is the natural ecosystem, or we can simply say our natural capital. It includes like protecting and preserving natural resources and ensuring we people should ensure that we are having a sort of ecological balance. And the third important term that we have to make sure, or we should know, that is development. So here development represents economic progress, technological innovation, and the structural growth. Not only growth, please keep this thing in mind, it is the structural growth aimed at improving living standards. Okay, so UGC-NET sometimes frames the question among like the conceptual questions regarding the interdependence of these three important pillars. So if development ignores the environment, ecology collapses. If environmental preservation ignores people's economic needs, so poverty persists. So our entire unit is designed to teach you how to strike the balance as a common citizen also. So let us first understand what is development. We have already, during our foundational ages, being in the schools and colleges, or even in our UG level also, we have come across these terms, development and growth, especially in terms while we're studying this particular sort of social sciences paper, that is economics. We have already come there. Sometimes we do like use these terms interchangeably, like growth and development, but there lies a foundational, or we can say a very fine line difference between these two. So what do I mean by growth? So we can say that growth is totally a quantitative and single dimensional. Please remember this, when it is like suggesting something towards the number of increasing something, that particular thing is signifying growth and not development, because growth is purely numerical. So when we can say that when a country's GDP or per capita income increases, we call it economic growth, not development. It measures the volume, output, and income. However, growth doesn't tell who is getting that money or whether the people are healthy and educated. We only know that the GDP of India is that, the GDP of Bangladesh is that, or the per capita income of the people of India is that. So we don't know whether who is getting benefited or how the people of the entire India are educated or not, how their lifestyles are. So it is particularly numerical. So coming to development, it is qualitative and multidimensional. So please keep this distinction in your head, that growth is quantitative and single dimensional, and development is qualitative and multidimensional. So development therefore encompasses both quantitative and qualitative improvement. So it includes like access to healthcare, literacy, clean water for drinking, sanitation, gender equality, like good amount of education, freedom, etc. All these qualitative attributes are related to development. So we can see that, suppose in order to clarify this thought, imagine, suppose a nation where GDP increases by 10% because 5 massive factories were built, but those factories polluted all the local drinking water facilities, and therefore a respiratory illness increase in their particular area. So that particular nation is experiencing only growth and not development, because there is the subtle decline in the development, because the humans or the residents of that particular area are suffering. So next we have to understand the sustainable development. Okay, so have you heard this term, this sustainable development? Any one of you? Okay, so we are already aware of the term sustainable development, which was put forth by Brundtland Commission in 1987 with its report titled Our Common Future. Please keep this in mind. The title of the report was Our Common Future, and it was published in 1987. So it refers sustainable development as the development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So whoever the candidates aspiring UGC-NET aspirants are joining here, I'm pretty sure that you have come across this term in your school itself. While we are introduced with the term sustainable development, this is the very code that we are very familiar with. So here you have to remember, from the UGC-NET perspective, you have to remember the year, that is 1987. You have to remember the commission that put forth this definition. Then you have to remember the report title, which I have already mentioned, Our Common Future. So we have to examine the core pillars of sustainable development. Number one is economic growth. So economic growth refers to promoting inclusive, sustained economic prosperity and innovation. Secondly, we have social inclusion. So here we have to ensure equity, equal access, and opportunities across all sections of society, eliminating discrimination. Thirdly, we have to remember environmental protection. So conserving natural resources and safeguarding ecosystems to maintain planetary health. So we can simply say that sustainability exists only at the intersection where all three pillars are fulfilled simultaneously. If any of the single pillar is missing, the overall structure collapses. Okay, so we are already introduced with the basic ideas related to sustainable development goals. So in the slide 4, we can see that there is the Millennium Development Goals that actually precedes the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, we all are aware of Sustainable Development Goals, but it came as a reaction due to fulfillment of the previous goal, that is the Millennial Development Goals. In short, we can say MDG. So we have this particular sort of summit was happened in September 2000. Okay, and it was targeted of 15 years, that is from 2000 to 2015. It was active during the time. So while you have to memorize some particular sort of things from Millennial Development Goals, firstly you have to remember the particular sort of year, that is 2000. The active time duration was from 2000 to 2015, that is 15 years of period. And thirdly, the important thing, that is the number of goals, targets, and indicators. So clearly you can see in the slide there are 8 number of goals in the Millennial Development Goals. There are 21 targets, and to indicate those targets and goals whether we have received or not, we have identified 60 indicators, 60. Okay, so you have to memorize this: 8 goals, 21 targets, and 60 indicators, because sometimes UGC-NET frames questions factually, not assertion and reason. Sometimes fact-based questions are there where they might be asking you the number of goals, targets, or even the indicators. So goal number 1, here it is clearly cited that eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. Okay, goal number 2, achieve universal primary education. Goal number 3, promote gender equality and empower women. Goal number 4, reduce child mortality. Goal number 5, improve maternal health. Goal number 6, combat HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other contagious diseases. Goal number 7, ensure environmental sustainability. And goal number 8, develop a global partnership for development. So although we can see that these particular short-term millennial development goals was unable to achieve all its achieved goals. Okay, so like it targeted at the developing nations only. So when the 2015 deadline was arrived, although significant progress has been made in all the indicators, but many targets remain unmet. So therefore, these particular sort of MDG led directly creation to the broader or the universal framework that we all know is Sustainable Development Goals, SDG. So when MDG ended in 2015, world leaders again met at the UN Sustainable Development Summit, which was held in September 2015, to adopt a new 15-year global roadmap. That is, we have to meet our goals of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So we have to remember some key structural facts here. So the official document name of the Sustainable Development Goal is Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which we commonly known as the Agenda 2030. So its active period is from 2016 to 2030, again 15-year of period of time. And the structure here, you have to remember the structure. Earlier it was 8 goals, then you please remember this. Now the structure is 17 goals, 169 targets, and 247 indicators. So earlier in MDG there were 8 goals, and here it is 17 goals. Earlier there was 21 target. Now the target was increased to 169. Okay. So and now the indicators is earlier it was 60 indicators and now it is 247 indicators. So we have also come to know that earlier MDG was, I have already highlighted that the earlier MDG was solely focusing on the developing nations, but Sustainable Development Goals is encompassing all the nations equally. Okay, so you have to remember the major distinction between MDG and SDG, because this is the high priority exam question from the NET perspective. So coming to the next slide, where I have cited all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and its breakdown. So let's see. Number 1, no poverty. You just have to remember the keywords only. Therefore, I'm not writing the full lines. SDG number 1 is no poverty. Number 2 is zero hunger. Number 3 is good health and well-being. Number 4 is quality education. Number 5 is gender equality. Number 6, clean water and sanitation. Number 7, affordable and clean energy. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. Number 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure. Number 10, reduce inequalities. That means within and among the countries. Okay, please keep this thing in mind. Sustainable goal number 11, that is sustainable cities and communities. Number 12 is responsible consumption and production. Number 13 is related to climate action. Number 14 is related to marine ecosystem, that is the life below water. Number 15 is related to terrestrial ecosystem, forest and biodiversity, hence it is life on land. Number 16 is peace, justice and strong institution. And number 17 is partnership for the goals. So you have, in order to remember these easily, you can group them together into the functional themes. So I'm telling you how. So if you look closely at SDG number 1 to 6, you can see that they are all related to the human needs, be it poverty, hunger, health, education, gender, and water, all are human needs. So you can focus it on thematically. Number 1 to 6 are human needs. Okay, and coming from number 7 to 11, you can focus that it is solely focusing on economic and infrastructure. Here we have energy, work, industry, equality, and cities. All these are related to economic and infrastructure. Number 12 to 15, you can see that it is solely related to the environmental and environmental health, be it the consumption, climate, water life, and land life. And number 16 and 17 is related to the institutional governance and how it should be implemented. Okay, so coming to the next slide, we will transition our focus to the physical science of the environment. We all are familiar with these two diagrams, I think. So if you see at the left, we have the environment and its basic structure. That is the four spheres of the earth. Number 1 is lithosphere. Number 2 is hydrosphere. Number 3 is atmosphere. And number 4 is biosphere. So what do we mean by lithosphere? We all know that lithosphere in simple terms refers to the solid outer crust of the earth, including the rocks, minerals, soils, landforms, and all sorts of mountain ranges. These all are combined together into the lithosphere, which is the outer crust or the outer surface of the earth. Hydrosphere, as the term denotes, is related to the water components across the globe, be it all the forms like the oceans, rivers, groundwater, glaciers, and atmospheric water vapor. It all undercomes the umbrella term hydrosphere. Thirdly, we have the atmosphere. So what do we mean by atmosphere? It is the protective blanket of gases that surrounds our planet. I'm telling you the basic differences that we all have come across in order to make ease with the paper, or particularly this unit. So number 4, we have biosphere. Biosphere means the one that we are exhibiting in, the narrow life supporting zone where the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere interact to sustain living organisms. That means we are living in the biosphere. Okay, so that is all from the environment side. And if you look closely at the right side, we have the certain divisions of the atmosphere, which is also a net perspective important point to remember here. Sometimes they would be asking some sort of phenomena or the activities taking place within the atmospheric levels, and we have to identify within which particular sort of level it is exhibiting. So we have to clearly understand this. So number 1, that is the lowest level we all know, is the troposphere. That means it is from 0 to 12 or 18 kilometer average. Average on it is like 12 kilometer only. So we all know that it is the lowest layer where we actually live. So if you want to remember some crucial facts related to this layer, we have to remember that all the weather phenomena, be it the clouds, weather phenomena means the clouds, the rain, the storm, the temperature inversion, all occur within this zone only. So we all know that as soon as the temperature, as soon as we temperature decreases with increased height. So we all are aware that if you go higher and higher, the temperature will decrease. Okay, so which we all know in scientific terms as the lapse rate, LAPSE rate. Okay, lapse rate. Number 2, we have the stratosphere. If we like roughly want to know the extension, it is from 12 to 50 kilometer. So while the term or the particular sort of stratosphere comes to our mind, the very particular phenomenon we are familiar with, that is the presence of ozone layer. You are right. So this layer lies directly above the troposphere. So it contains the ozone layer which we all commonly known as the O3, which absorbs the harmful ultraviolet rays that is coming directly from the sun. So temperature increases with altitude here due to UV absorption. Also another important fact is that airplanes fly in the lower stratosphere to avoid weather turbulence. Okay, So firstly, all the weather phenomena we have come across in the troposphere. While coming to stratosphere, we have to make sure that we are aware of the ozone layer or the presence of the ultraviolet rays, and how the airplanes fly within the lower level of stratosphere in order to avoid all the weather turbulence. Number third, we have the mesosphere, which roughly extends from 50 to 85 kilometer. So if we look at the 5 layers, this comes in the middle, mesosphere. So it is the coldest layer of the atmosphere. So here the temperature can drop to minus 90 degrees centigrade. So M, that is we have to in like linking. So whenever I do read, I always try to find link in order to memorize it. So mesosphere comes in the middle. So one thing we are already clear, and another important factor that happens is the presence of the meteors. So we can remember that M with M. So meteors burn up in this layer upon entering Earth's atmosphere. Number 4, we have the thermosphere. So within thermosphere, it extends from 85 to 600 kilometer. So it contains the ionosphere. Okay, the presence of ions. We all know the scientific terms ions, which reflect radio waves back to Earth, enabling long distance telecommunication. Okay, so keep this thing in mind. And number 5, we have the exosphere, which is 600 kilometer to 10,000 kilometer. So this is the outermost boundary where gases gradually thin out and merge into the outer space. So in our foundational years of academic career also, we have come across these two, but here you have to read it in advanced level. So they would not ask like what is troposphere, what is stratosphere and all. Sometimes they would be giving you the factual questions, okay, that the weather phenomena happens in which type of layer or in which atmospheric level, then you have to correctly identify that it is the troposphere. So you have to link all the activities that is happening within this particular layers of atmosphere. So let's move on to the next slide. So here we will analyze the human interaction and how it is creating the environmental degradation. Because in my like in the starting also I have tell how these three are all interrelated. Okay, so environmental issues. So what do we mean by environmental issues? As correctly stated in the slide, these are the harmful disruptions or degradation caused directly or indirectly by anthropogenic. Anthropogenic means the human-made activities or natural events on planetary ecosystems. Okay, that is the simple definition of environmental issue. So here we have scaled down three types of environmental issues. Number 1 is the local scale, number 2 is the regional scale, and number 3 is the global scale. So what is local scale? Suppose as the term defines, local space refers to the specific immediate location of ours. So here the problems could be like the open garbage dump in a city, municipal industrial discharge in a local pond, or noise from a neighborhood generator. That is within our close proximity, all the environmental issues we term it as the local issues. Okay, so coming to regional. So it spans across states or national boundaries. For example, acid rain affecting forests across multiple European countries. Sometimes we have come across the news, runoff polluting an environment, entire river basin, or the floods, and also how it is affecting. So it is like surpassing the states or sometimes the national boundaries also. These all environmental issues are come under the regional issues. And number 3 is the global issues. So it affects the entire planet. So the prominent example of a global scale environmental issue is none other than the global warming or the climate change. Okay, so another important could be the stratospheric ozone depletion and the rise in the global sea level. Okay, so next, we have to remember pollution. If you see in the slide, I have defined a term. What do we mean by pollution? Okay, so any undesirable change that is happening in the physical or chemical or biological characteristics of be it water, air, soil, land that causes harm or discomfort to humans or any other sorts of living beings is termed as pollutants. Okay, and what is pollutant? So pollutant is any sort of substance, chemical compound, a form of energy introduced in the environment that causes these harmful effects or disrupts the ecological balance. Okay, please keep these terms in mind, pollution and pollutant. Next, moving on to the next slide. So here we will discuss the 4 major domains of pollution that are systematically tested in unit number 9 of UGC-NET paper 1. So here I have identified 4 types of major pollution. Number 1 is air pollution. Number 2 is water pollution. Number 3 is soil or land pollution. Number 4 is noise pollution. We all are familiar with, okay, but then also we will try to revise it again. Now, air pollution defines to the presence or addition of harmful gases, especially the particulate matter, which we will refer in the subsequent slides as PM. Okay, particulate matter and biological molecules into the atmosphere at levels harmful to living organisms and climate systems. That is the air pollution. Secondly, we have the water pollution. So the contamination of surface water bodies, be it the surface water bodies refers to like the rivers, lakes, oceans, and groundwater aquifers, rendering water unsafe for consumption, agriculture, or supporting aquatic life that we termed as water pollution. Number 3, we have soil or land pollution. So simply we can refer to it as the degradation of the earth's land surface and soil quality caused by solid waste disposal, toxic industrial effluents, heavy metals and agricultural chemicals. Number 4, we have noise pollution. So exposure to elevated, unwanted or damaging sound levels that cause physiological discomfort, hearing damage and psychological stress in humans and animals. So in the subsequent slides, we will examine each of these pollution categories in depth. So firstly, we will discuss with the air pollution. So you have to pay close attention here as the classification of pollutants is frequently a NET exam topic. So NET favorite topic, NFT. Okay. So air pollutants are divided into 2 primary categories based on how they form. Okay. Number 1 is the primary pollutant and number 2 is the secondary pollutant. So what are the primary pollutants? So these are directly emitted into the atmosphere from identifiable sources. Okay. So here please mark the term identifiable sources such as the factory, chimneys or vehicle exhaust. We can identify from where these sort of pollutants are coming. Okay, so these are termed as the primary pollutants. So they come out in a harmful form. So here we can take the example of particulate matter, which is abbreviated as PM 2.5 and PM 10. So particulate matter with aerodynamic diameters less than 2.5 and 10 respectively. SOx, it refers to the sulfur dioxide, mainly the sulfur oxide. So which is mostly released from the burning fossil fuels like coals in thermal power plants. Next we have NOx, means the nitrous oxide, and especially we have to remember this. It is released from high temperature combustion in vehicles and power plants. Next we have carbon monoxide, which is produced by the incomplete combustion of carbon based fuels. In all, first you have to remember what are the primary pollutants and its example. Then you have to identify the sources from where they are coming. So sometimes they would be giving you the options of various pollutants and you have to identify whether they are primary or the secondary pollutants. And sometimes you have to mark the fact-based question that from where carbon monoxide is coming from. Then you have to immediately identify that it basically comes from the incomplete combustion of carbon-based fuels. And at the right side, we have the secondary pollutants. So these are not directly emitted from any sources. Instead, they form in the atmosphere when primary pollutants undergo chemical reactions with each other, often catalyzed by sunlight and moisture. Okay. So here we have the primary examples like ground level ozone. So it is mostly formed when nitrous oxide and volatile organic compounds react in the atmosphere in presence of sunlight. Okay, so you have to please keep in note that ozone in the stratosphere is protective for us because it mostly protects us from the harmful ultraviolet radiation that is coming from the sun. But ground level ozone in the troposphere, that is found in the troposphere, is a hazardous pollutant. So you have to make these distinctions that not all the ozones are good. The stratospheric ozone is good and protective for us, while the tropospheric ozone is very much hazardous to human and all other living beings existing in the biosphere. Next, we have PAN, that is peroxyacetyl nitrate. So it is a potent eye irritant formed in the photochemical smog. Okay, so what is smog? Smog is the combination of two words, that is the smoke and the fog. Okay, smoke and the fog, it combines into forming the smoke. Okay, so keep this thing in mind. Next, we have the that I have already mentioned, that is the photochemical smoke. So it is the mixture of pollutants like ozone, pan, and nitrous oxide that is formed under the sunlight. So if these things are clear, then we will move on to the next slide, where we will be discussing the specific consequences of air pollution, which I have divided into human health effects and ecological impacts as well. So firstly, human health impacts. Number one, we are all aware that the air pollution leads, primarily damages our respiratory diseases, or it causes respiratory diseases in human and other living beings. So the fine particulate matter, especially the PM 2.5, you can just imagine like the diameter itself is 2.5. So how small it could be? So it penetrates deep into the pulmonary alveoli and enters the bloodstream while we inhale the air. And it causes respiratory diseases like asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, and even lung cancer too. Secondly, we have the cardiovascular stress. So carbon monoxide binds with hemoglobin in red cells to form this particular sort of carboxyhemoglobin. So CO, that is carbon monoxide, has an affinity for hemoglobin roughly 200 times higher than oxygen. So severely reducing the blood oxygen level carrying capacity in human beings and therefore can lead to cardiac stress. Number three, we have the heavy metal toxicity. So where it comes come to the heavy metal toxicity, we can never forget the role of lead that we in chemically refer to as PB. So airborne lead causes neurological means related to brain and the spinal cord, neurological impairment, cognitive deficits in children, and the problem of anemia. And number four, we can have the eye and the throat irritation as well. So secondary pollutants like the pan and photochemical smoke cause acute eye watering. The watering of our eyes sometimes when we go out into a polluted places. So it is due to the secondary pollutants and the presence of photochemical smoke there, and the burning sensations and throat mucosal inflammation. These all are the health related issues coming out of the consequence of air pollution. And secondly, we will be discussing the environmental and ecological consequences, like how it is affecting our very environment. So first one is the acid rain. We all are aware of acid rain. So acid rain is formed when sulfur dioxide, that is SO2, and nitrous oxide react with water vapor to form sulfuric acid. So we have to remember the formula, and then we can automatically like identify which two pollutants are responsible for the creation of acid rain. So sometimes UGC-NET exam ask you this, like you have to identify the two pollutants that are responsible for the creation of acid rain. Then you have to remember sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide, which react with in the presence of water vapor to form sulfuric acid and nitric acid as well. So acid rain drops soil pH level, and it causes fire dieback and acidifies aquatic ecosystem. Okay. Secondly, we have the global climate change. So we all are aware of these greenhouse gases, how it is trapped infrared thermal radiation in the troposphere and driving the global warming. Number third is the depletion of the ozone layer. So chlorofluorocarbon release chlorine radicals in the stratosphere, destroying the protective ozone layer that we all have come across. right? And number 4, we have the agriculture yield loss. So ground level ozone enters plant stomata. Stomata, we all know, that is present in the leaves. Plant stomata damages internal plant tissues, reduces photosynthesis, and lower crop yields. Okay, so these are there. And in the next slide, we will be covering the statutory acts and monitoring policy frameworks implemented in India to combat the air pollution. So number 1 is the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. You have to remember this. This is the primary legislation establishing regulatory bodies to prevent, control, and abate air pollution. Okay, and you have to also remember that in 1987, an amendment was there which added the particular word noise, N-O-I-S-E, noise, under the definition of air pollution. Okay. Next, we have the Environmental Protection Act, EPA 1986. So it is an umbrella piece of legislation enacted following the 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy. So it empowers the central government to take all the necessary measures to protect and improve environmental quality. Then we have the key programs and monitoring systems. So number first is NCAP, that is National Clean Air Program. So it was launched in 2019. The time-bound strategy aims for 20% to 40% reduction in PM 2.5 and PM 10 concentrations in non-attainment cities. Number 2 is National Air Quality Index, that we are all aware of. We have already come across and we are recently seeing in the news also, that is the Air Quality Index. So it is basically a simplified tool to communicate air quality status using a single number, nomenclature, and color code. So if you want to know that, that is divided into 6 AQI categories are there, that are being divided into good, satisfactory, moderately polluted, poor, very poor, and severe. And these colors you have to remember in order to identify it. That is, good is denoted by the dark green, light green is denoting satisfactory, the color yellow is representing moderately polluted, the orange color is showing that the air quality of that particular place is poor, the red one is showing that the air quality of that particular place is very poor, and the maroon one shows that the air quality of the particular city or that particular region is severe. So you have to remember the categories with this color. So sometimes you have UGC-NET frames questions in order to match the following. So please remember this. And we have to remember the pollutants also, because these air quality index, the simplified tool, have tracked down 8 different types of pollutants. Number 1 is PM10, then we have PM 2.5, then we have nitrous oxide, then we have sulfur dioxide, next we have carbon oxide, next we have ozone, and then we have ammonia, that is NH3, and then we have PB, that is lead. So you have to memorize the 8 shorter pollutants identified the air quality index. Next, we have to remember the Bharat stage emission norms. So we are currently in BS6. So India bypassed this BS5 and transition directly from BS, that is Bharat stage 4, to directly 6 into April 2020 to reduce this sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide emissions from vehicles. And number 4th important one, that is SAFAR, that is System of Air Quality and Weather Forecasting and Research. Okay, that is in short we known as SAFAR, and it is developed by IIT Madras Pune, IIT Pune, to provide real-time air quality forecast. So coming to the next slide, we will examining the water pollution and its source classification. So we have already discussed what do we mean by water pollution. So here we will only discussing the types of sources. There are 2 types of sources, that is the point sources, and another one is the non-point sources. So as discussed earlier, point source refers to the water pollution or the pollutant which is originating from a single, discrete, and identifiable location or pipe. For example, an industrial effluent pipe discharging wastewater directly into a river, or municipal sewage outlet pipe emptying into a lake. So we can identify from where this particular sort of pollution is coming from. If we can see that it is from industry, we can identify, and therefore the term is here is, we have used this, not we have, like the UGC-NET have loved to use it as point sources, that we can point it out or we can identify it out. So the key characteristic could be it is easy to monitor, trace, and therefore it can be regulated legally. Second one is the non-point source. So as the word suggests, it refers to originating from diffuse, widespread areas where runoff collects pollutants over a large spatial expanse. So here we cannot identify exactly from where this like pollution is coming from. So it is widespread in terms of space. Okay. So examples could be the agricultural runoff carrying synthetic fertilizers and pesticides from farmland, or urban stormwater carrying oil and greases from city roads. So here it is unable to detect or trace down a single source. Okay. So next we will be discussing the water pollutants and the heavy metals and specific health related diseases. In the next slide, we will be discussing this. So if we want to remember, as earlier I have mentioned about these 8 number of pollutants, and among them you have to remember this heavy metal, or we can say the pollutant that is necessary in order to identify the terms of specific health hazard or disease it can cause. Number 1 is mercury, which we refer to as Hg. Okay, so it is basically related to the Minamata diseases. So it is mostly related to the neurological impairment. Neurology means the related to our nervous system. Secondly, we have the cadmium. It is not only the neurological damages that it causes, it also like causing the loss of motor coordination. Motor means our bodily movement. Okay, numbness and muscular weakness as well. Secondly, we have the cadmium, CD. So it is related to the Ita disease. Okay. So it was first identified in Toyama. As the name suggests, we can identify that it was first identified in Japan due to cadmium contamination of water, river water used to irrigate the rice field. Okay. Its symptoms could be severe softening of bones. Okay. Intense joint and spinal pain and renal failure. Number third is the arsenic. We all are aware of arsenic, the presence of arsenic in specific cities and all. So it is related to the Blackfoot disease. So the chronic exposure to high levels of inorganic arsenic in groundwater, that is we have most basically come across the areas like that covers Ganga Brahmaputra plains. Okay, so severe symptoms could include severe peripheral vascular diseases leading to gangrene of the lower limbs, hyperpigmentation, skin lesions, and elevated cancer risk. Okay, so we all are known that those people who are prone to this or the uses of arsenic water, they have the problem of hyperpigmentation, and sometimes they could be caught by the disease like tonsils as well. So number 4, we have the nitrate. So it is related to the blue baby syndrome. Okay. So it converts, nitrates convert to nitrites in an infant's digestive system, binding with hemoglobin to form methamoglobin, which cannot transport oxygen. And we all know when there is the lack of oxygen transportation, our body becomes somewhat blue or violet. So it is known as the blue baby syndrome. Number 5, we have the fluoride, and it is mostly related to the dental and skeletal fluorosis. So it the symptoms could be moderate excess causes enamel staining, mottling. Severe long-term exposure can causes bone deformation and joint rigidity. So coming to the next slide, we will be discussing the important terms related to water pollution, that is biological oxygen demand. Then we have the chemical oxygen demand, eutrophication, biomagnification, and bioaccumulation. So we have to quickly remember the terms and what is actually denotes. So biological oxygen demand. So it refers to the amount of dissolved oxygen required by aerobic microorganisms to biologically decompose organic matter present in a water sample over a specific period. So one thing you have to remember, that high biological oxygen demands is equal to high organic pollution is equal to low dissolved oxygen. Okay, so the amount of the increase in one would lead the decrease in the other. So here, when sewage enters a water body, bacteria consumes the dissolved oxygen rapidly to break down the waste, lowering the availability of dissolved oxygen and causing aquatic life to suffocate. Okay. Secondly, we have the chemical oxygen demand, COD. So it refers to the amount of oxygen required to chemically oxidize both organic and inorganic pollutants in a water sample. So you have to remember one exam rule is there that COD is always greater than BOD. Okay, because COD accounts for chemically oxidizable compounds that bacteria cannot break down. Number third is the eutrophication. So agricultural runoff containing excess nutrients, be it the nitrates and phosphates, enter stagnant water bodies. This nutrient enrichment triggers rapid algal growth. We all know that is the blooming of the algae. When these algae die, decomposers consume available dissolved oxygen, clearing hypnotic dead zones. That is, we have come across or we have seen this the cover of green layer over the ponds. Okay. Number four is the bioaccumulation. So bioaccumulation refers to the accumulation of a non-biodegradable toxic substance within the tissue of a single individual organism over its lifetime. And last one is the biomagnification. So the progressive increase in the concentration of a non here is the continuation the higher trophic levels across a food chain. So biomagnification, suppose a fish in a water river is prone to the biomagnification and then we particularly consuming the fish. In order, what would happen consequently that we would be suffering from the same diseases. So it is known as the biomagnification. And in the next slide, we will be discussing the water governance and legislative frameworks that is still functioning in India. So number one is the statutory act and the legislative act. So you have to check the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974. So it is the India's baseline environmental law enacted to prevent and control water pollution and maintain or restore water wholesome quality. So it establishes the Central Pollution Control Board. Next, we have the Environmental Protection Act, that is 1986. So it provides the nationwide regulatory authority to set industrial wastewater discharge standards. And next, we have the key programs and missions as well. So number one is the Namami Ganga program. So it is an integrated national conservation mission created to abate pollution, protect biodiversity, and regenerate the Ganga River basin. And number second, we have the National Water Mission. So it is one of the 8 missions under the National Action Plan on Climate Change. So it focuses on the integrated water resources management, conserving water and increasing water use efficiency by 20%. Number third, we have the Jal Jeevan Mission. It was launched to provide functional household tap connection, delivering safe drinking water to rural households. And number four is the National Lake Conservation Plan and National Wetland Conservation Plan. So here I have used the acronym also for your easy understanding. Next slide, we will be discussing about the noise pollution, the standards and its health effect. So we have already come across what is noise pollution, that is the unwanted disturbing or the elevated sound. And how it is measure, we have already covered this in our school science books, that it is always measured in an algorithmic scale which we known as the decibel. So it is we can know that the more than 60 decibel, it is hazardous to our psychological and other health related issue. So the 60 dB is measured to the normal conversations we have. We cannot get exposure to more than 60 dB to a long exposure can lead to various health related issues. So ambient noise standards in India, that is the noise pollution rules 2000. So you have to memorize these statutory limits set by the Central Pollution Control Board. So in industrial zone, we have seen the morning and daytime and the nighttime schedule. That is the morning covers from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and the night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So industrial zone, it is 7 dBA and in night it is 70 dBA. In commercial zone, during the day it is 65 dB, and during the night it is 55. In residential area it is 55 during the daytime, and it drops to 45 during the nighttime. And silence zone refers to in an area the arounds of hospitals, schools, courts, etc. So during the daytime it is 50 dB, and during the nighttime it is 40 dB. That's why we have always come across the signboards, no honk please, in front of the hospitals or schools as well. So the consequences of noise pollutions are, I have divided into auditory and non-auditory effects. So auditory related to the hearing capacity. So the temporary threshold shift and the permanent threshold shift and tinnitus, that is the persistent ringing in the ear. Sometimes we are already come across this particular sort of problem where we feel that there is something ringing in our ears, but it is not. Okay, it happens due to the long exposure to the noise pollution. And the non-auditory could be the elevated hypertension, cardiovascular strain, and having problems in sleeping, having a good sleep, and cognitive impairment as well. And in the next slide, we will be seeing some sort of technique that is known as the green muffler technique. So what do you mean by green muffler technique? So it is basically an eco-friendly noise abatement technique involving the planting dense parallel rows of evergreen trees and shrubs along roadsides, highways, industrial zones, and around silent zones. So how it actually works? So planted vegetation acts as a physical acoustic barrier. Barrier means the obstruction that absorbs, deflects, and dissipates sound waves, reducing the ambient noise levels before sound reaches the residential communities. So therefore, the effective green mufflers typically consist of 4 to 6 parallel rows of dense trees. So the most suitable species here chosen by the government or proposed by the government are neem, ashoka, banyan, peepal, mango, and jamun. So co-benefits could include that in addition to noise reduction. So don't confuse it. Sometimes like UGC frames the question that the green muffler is related to which type of pollutions, and we shouldn't be related it directly to the air pollution. Yeah, it has the co-benefits of air pollution as well, but mostly it is a technique used to reduce the effects of the, we can say, noise pollution. Yeah. So the co-benefits could include, in addition to noise reduction, so green mufflers filter ambient dust, especially the particulate matter 10, and absorb carbon dioxide. It could lower local urban heat island effects as well through evapotranspiration and support urban biodiversity. And in the last slide, we will be quickly discussing about the soil pollution, its sources, and health effects. So we have already come across what is soil pollution. So how it occurs? So soil pollution occurs when toxic chemicals, heavy metals, radioactive compounds, or pathogens accumulate in soil at concentrations that alter its physical structure, diminish fertility, and harm ecosystem. So its major sources could include the agricultural sources, that is overuse of synthetic chemical fertilizers and persistent organochlorine pesticides and insecticides lead to the diminishing of the fertility of the soil of that particular area. Secondly, it could be industrial and mining activities. So the untreated toxic industrial sludge and heavy metal tailings from mining operation could also lead to the diminish of the physical chemical qualities of the soil. Third is the waste management and urban sources, where the uncontrolled disposal of e-waste, municipal solid waste leach into the ground, and untreated biomedical waste, that is the syringe and all. Number 4, that is the atmospheric deposition. So the acid rain depositing toxic sulfates and nitrates into the soil, lowering the pH level of the soil and leaching out the nutrients. So its key impacts could include soil degradation, that is the loss of organic humus, destruction of beneficial soil microbes, and loss of fertile land to cultivate some crops properly. Secondly, we have the groundwater contamination as well. So the soluble toxins, we all know what is soluble and insoluble. So the soluble toxins leach through soil layers into the groundwater aquifers, that groundwater we particularly use. Number 3, we have the human health toxicity. So the biomagnification of the persistent human metals, be it the lead, cadmium, so food crops lead to neurological damage, sometimes kidney failure, and chronic diseases as well.